Bonjour, alors bienvenue. Aujourd'hui on va faire la leçon du 21 septembre. C'est 10-2 dans votre livre Liaison. We're doing 10-2 in liaisons. Today it's the September 21 lesson. So a couple of announcements. You have your rough draft for your first composition due this Sunday. Don't forget. If you need any help with that, yell. And you have a lot of resources there on Blazeview that should help you. And just keep it simple. That's the best advice I can give you for pretty much all the compositions, is just really keep it simple. If you're starting to say something that you really can't figure out how to say, especially if you can't find very many elements about it or to support it in stuff that you've already done, then you're probably reaching a little too far. So back off, and your current composition is tailored pretty closely to a lot of the vocab and everything that we've just been doing. So really let it inform your composition, meaning try to inspire yourself directly from the vocab, directly from the grammar that we've had, as far as you can. So voilà. This should also help you start from a French point and instead of starting from an English point. If you start too much from an idea in your head, then sometimes you have a tendency to have it be too much based in English. So try not to think out too many details in English first. Definitely try not to think out the sentences in English first, although I know that's really, really hard to do. But if you'll just try to focus on your vocab and let your vocab lead you, try to say things that are available in your vocab list, then it should help you avoid things that are too advanced for you, and it should help you avoid expressions that you are going to have to resort to translation for or something. So really try to base it on the vocab and start from there. Anyway, that's a really, really long, wordy way of saying the same thing, but that's okay. Alors, aujourd'hui, on va continuer avec les réfléchis. You will have those. Oh, the other thing was, somebody finally let me know that none of the videos were working. They were working on my end for a while, and then when this person wrote me, I went back and no, they weren't working. So I'm going to redo all of our lessons. They're going to be on my YouTube page. And so give me a couple days to get that done. As I told the 102s, I'm going to be doing Camtasia videos out the wazoo. So just give me a day or two to finish that, and I'll have these up for you. And you might want to go listen to the réfléchis one first, the one just on verbe réfléchis, before this, or go back to your first year text if you still have it and review there. We're gonna review a little bit on reflexives before we dig into the passé composé ones today, so if you need to keep reviewing the réfléchis a little bit more before you jump into the passé composé for them, then please do that. It never hurts to go back and refresh your memory. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to go to text. You'll find text is one of my favorite sites. I've used it on a couple of presentations already, but of course you guys don't have access to those at the moment. So text is a pretty good site. Sometimes this is going to be a site that has vocab that you're not quite ready for. Now you guys are second year, so there should be less problem vocab here than there would be for first year. But still, anytime that you use an outside site, first of all, it's always good to go use an outside site if you need to after you get done practicing stuff in liaison. I know you have plenty to work on in there, so that usually is ample, but sometimes we just want a different context or some other place to go watch something or go look at something, and a different way to work with something. So go ahead and play with other sites anytime you like, and just remember that these sites should work for you. If you end up getting into one that's just like, formatted in a way that just freaks you out, because sometimes, and this actually may freak some of you out, but we're going to go straight to the activities, so don't worry. I'm just going to show you a couple of other things. So if you pull up a site and it's just like all grammar or something, just I don't want to do this, I just want to practice, I don't want to be freaked out about grammar, then cool, go to another site. That one obviously doesn't work for you. And if you use my grammar page very much, which I'm in the process of redoing because there are a lot of dead links from when I used it last, and there are a lot of really fun new sites that I'm finding, so I'm replacing some of the grammar links on that, and then I'll post it for you on BlazeView. But if you're using any sites off of that, I want them to work for you. So if something freaks you out, or the activities don't really work, or the vocab is a little further along than you've had, or it's vocab that you just don't remember very well and you don't want to have to go look everything up, go on to the next one and practice with it. You don't want to be freaked out about a site. I keep using that expression, but you know what I mean. If the site particularly confuses you or distracts you from what you're supposed to be practicing, then it's not good for you. So it's not you, it's the site. You want this tool to work for you. So go on to a new one. And anytime you find one that's not working, let me know, especially if it's a link on my page. If it's just an activity that doesn't seem to work the way the creators expected it to, then normally there's a comment button somewhere, or feel free to write to me and I'll write to them and let them know it's not working. So voila. So right now we're going to review with, we're going to look at actually our, we're going to review a little bit of passé of réfléchis with our own materials. So remember that you have various different pronouns, pardon, voila, for each subject pronoun. So je me, tu te, il, elle, on, se, nous, vous, il, elle, se, n'est-ce pas? And we're putting these right in front of the conjugated verb. The reason I'm underlining this is because when we start to do passé composé with them, the same rule is going to apply. So always tell yourself that these are going in front of the conjugated verb, directly in front. Also, when you do your negation, this should help you remember. Just one moment. I'm going to find the, oops. I'm going to find the negation. I thought we had a page on, I guess we don't. Okay, well, voila. I'm going to pull up a sticky then. This is the sticky I was just using for 1002. So remember, je sais pas, quelque chose comme je me rase. D'accord? Tous les jours. D'accord? I'm doing my negation. Remember I just said put your pronoun right in front of the conjugated verb, directly in front. Now from now on, I'm going to pretend that this is a unit. I'm not going to separate it no matter what. D'accord? Oh, pardon. So I'm keeping this together, and if you need to, put a circle around it or something. Now anything else that I do to the verb, I'm going to treat this entire piece as the verb. Okay? So normally, let's look at another example. Normalement, je dirais quelque chose comme, je sais pas, je parle à Pierre. Pierrot. J'ai un ami en France qui s'appelle Pierre, on l'appelle Pierrot. C'est assez typique, d'ailleurs. A friend of mine in France who goes by Pierrot with most of his intime, most of his friends and family. So that's something you find a lot with Pierres. So remember when we used to do negation on a verb that didn't have two parts, and I just put ne pas. Oh, I don't know why I changed that. For some reason I thought I had it transposed. D'accord. So I'm putting ne pas around my conjugated verb, right? And it just has one piece, so it's easy to remember that it's a conjugated verb. Now the same thing with these. If I'm going to make a negation, I'm going to put it around the entire conjugated verb. And from now on, you're going to pretend like you're reflexive pronoun is part of the verb, okay? In this case, part of the conjugated verb. So everything I would normally do to a single verb, I'm now going to do to this whole piece, okay? So my negation, d'accord, pardon, voilà, d'accord? I still have my reflexive together there in the middle, right? And I'm putting ne pas around the entire thing. Now the same thing would happen if I were making inversion or anything else. I'm going to pretend that whole thing is my conjugated verb. If you need to review this more, go on back to the reflexives lesson. And let's go on with our passé composé. So au passé composé, the first big thing, I always yawn during these. It is morning, however, I always yawn during these, so it's not just because of it being morning. When I'm looking at reflexives in passé composé, I'm always going to use être. D'accord? Now, remember what we said about where to place the reflexive pronoun. It always goes in front of the conjugated verb. Now, être is going to be your conjugated verb. So your reflexive is going to go in front of être. D'accord? Alors ici, vous avez ils se sont excusés. Look at what's happening. Se is going in front of sont because now it's the conjugated verb. Okay? Your pronoun is always going in front of the conjugated verb. Same thing with nous nous sommes occupés du problème. Nous sommes, nous is going in front of my conjugated verb. If I were doing negation or anything, which we'll see in a minute, I'm going to pretend this whole thing is a unit, just like we just did. Oh, we were going to go, oh, sorry, I'm so sorry. I forgot we were going to review reflexives a little bit first. That's why I did the little post-it. So let's review reflexives in present. I'm so sorry. Un tout petit peu. Je vais le rendre plus grand. Voilà. Alors, again, this is on text. Now, sometimes you're going to find that text has different vocab than you're used to. If it's too much for you, go to another site. With this one, just bear with us. We're just going to do 5 or 6 to get started. Alors, texte et amis ne, pas avec leurs amis. Alors, s'ennuyer is a stem changer, but don't worry, it's still just a normal reflexive verb. I'm going to change my spelling, but that's the only difference. So what is our pronoun for texte et amis? If you need to, go back and think texte et amis. Think about the pronoun, the subject in conjunction with your normal six, your little chart of 6 for your subject pronouns, je, tu, il, elle, on, nous, vous, il, elle, and think about what corresponds to texte et amis. You should come up with il, n'est-ce pas? D'accord? Normally you would just need to put the verb in here, but I just wanted to show you. Alors, il, if you stop and think now about your reflexive pronoun, what is your reflexive pronoun for il pluriel? Vous avez me, te, ce, nous, vous, ce, n'est-ce pas? Alors, ce. And my stem changer, and then bear with us, we're doing these in steps. So I know some of you are like, wait a minute. Hang on just a second. We're going to put them together in a second. So for people who aren't quite up to that and want to think about everything in a step, that's what we're going to do for the first couple. Alors, il se, et puis, ennuyer. Qu'est-ce que vous allez faire? Stem changer with Y-E-R always goes to I, right? Il s'ennuie. Pardon, I said it accidentally. Accidentally said it the way we're supposed to do it. And then I have 2 vowels next to each other. So with the reflexives, I'm going to go ahead and drop my E and put it together. D'accord? So just for practice, let's make this into negative also. Okay? Normally, we're going to put it around the conjugated verb. And what did I say? I said treat the entire thing as your conjugated verb, right? Alors, il ne s'ennuie pas. D'accord? What if we were doing inversion? What's going to happen with inversion? So I'm making a question with inversion. Remember, I normally take my conjugated verb and my subject and I invert them. Same thing here. I'm going to invert my subject and actually let's do it in here. so that you're not confusing the negation. We could do a negative question, but we don't really need to. I just want to show you the inversion real quick. So, il s'ennuie. Keep my entire reflexive and conjugated verb together. What did I say? I said treat that as your new conjugated verb. Treat that whole thing as a unit. So, I'm going to start out with a s'ennuie-t-il. D'accord? Voilà. Alors, Fiona dit à Tex, tu, nanana, mais moi je vais travailler. So, I have s'amuser, standard ER. I'm going to think about what pronoun I need for tu. Me, te, ce, nous, vous, ce. And you should come up with te, n'est-ce pas? I'm going to repeat the pronouns so that you have it all together. And how do I do standard ER for tu? Hopefully you came up with es, amuse, d'accord? And I have two vowels next to each other, so I'm going to do my apostrophe. If you're on the ball enough to do that as you go, yay, you. If you're not, then that's okay. Try to do things in steps, and sooner or later it'll start becoming automatic. Alors, même chose, on va faire inversion. So how would I invert this to make a question? And remember again, I'm keeping this entire thing together. Will it let me underline? No. Okay, I can't underline on here. But keep this all together. For all intents and purposes, this entire word with the te is your conjugated verb now. Alors? Oh, pardon. D'accord? T'amuses-tu? Okay. And if I want to do the negation, same thing. Pardon. Keep t'amuse all together. Put the ne pas around your conjugated verb. Alors tu, no, t'amuses. Oh, I don't know why I want to type that you there so badly. Tu ne t'amuses pas. D'accord? Tammy dit à Fiona, tu ne vas pas se reposer, standard ER. Now, we saw last lesson that sometimes you're going to have future proche, or aller plus the infinitive, with reflexives. Now, in this case, the same thing happens, but it just results in a different thing. What I said way back when was that once your pronoun is there, it's part of the verb, right? And the same thing happens here. My reflexive is reposer, not aller, right? So my pronoun is going to stay with the verb that it has to do with. So now that I'm using future proche, and again, go back to the last presentation if you need to review this a little more. Now that I'm using future proche, my pronoun is going to stay with the infinitive. Little by little, eventually I might post my pronoun rules somewhere for you, but the first thing you ever always look for with the pronoun placement of reflexives, direct object, indirect object, everything, is an infinitive. That's always going to take precedence over the conjugated verb. If there's no infinitive, then it goes with the conjugated verb. So here, there's an infinitive. Also think about it again, as I said, the reflexive is part of this verb, not that verb, okay? Aller is not reflexive. This one is, okay? So I'm keeping my verb parts together. Alors, tu ne vas pas. What's my pronoun for tu again? Te reposer. So I'm keeping my pronoun together, but I'm still changing, or with my verb, but I'm still changing it for who I need to change it for, right? Tex est ami. Alors ici, pour il pluriel, comme on avait avant. Alors, il se promène. Now this one is a stem changer, if you recall. Maybe you haven't had it. I don't remember if it was earlier in the liaison or not. Tammy, ne. Alors, te, me, je, me, te, se, nous, vous, se. Alors, ne se fâche. Pardon. Jamais avec moi. N'est-ce pas? Voilà. So that gives us a little review. We're going to stop there. Yes. And we're going to go back to our presentation. Ils se sont excusés. I'll jump the vocab a little bit. If we have time, we'll do a little bit more of it at the end, but I think you're okay on vocab. And I think the crucial stuff right now is the reflexives, so I really wanted to do those. So again, you have a little bit of review here. You have your pronoun in front of the conjugated verb, right? Now the past participle doesn't always agree. Oh, I forgot to talk about agreement. Ici, vous avez l'accord du participe passé. The past participle is agreeing with each of these, right? So, usually there's agreement. Sorry, I had to yawn again. J'ai baillé, excuse-moi. Excusez-moi, Julien. Alors, ils se sont excusés. I have agreement with il pluriel, S, right? Nous nous sommes occupés, S. Encore. Vous vous êtes mariés, S. Elle s'est mise avec eux à cause du féminin. Alors, même chose, n'est-ce pas? Now, just for argument's sake, if we wanted to make nous be a group of females, nous nous sommes occupés, hopefully you remember it would be EES, right? Let's look at that again. So, je sais pas, elle se promène, pourquoi pas? D'accord? Au passé composé, elle. What do I do with my pronoun? It goes in front of the conjugated verb, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in. What is être for elle? Hopefully you remember. Sont. And in each case, I may have already said this, something like this where you have 3 or 4 different grammar points coming together, if you start to get on to, if you're going through the book for your review, or you're looking at this presentation, or you're digging in on your activities, any of those things, and all of a sudden you see a new element that you've seen before, and here would be être, and you need to go review it, okay? Go review it so that you don't have to stop and think about things that you should already have in your head, but I'll try not to be too cajoly about that stuff, but everybody really should have être completely automatic by now. You really, really, really should. So if you don't, go back and review it, because you don't want to get hung up on être when you're supposed to be worrying about things that are a little more complicated. Because now we want to practice reflexives. We don't want to practice être. You shouldn't be using this as a way to remind yourself about être. But that being said, hopefully everybody remembered that sont is your form for être. And then my past participle. And what happens? We said stem changers just resemble the infinitive, so no problem. I normally would have my E accent aigu. Et puis là, j'ai féminin pluriel, alors ES. Okay? Elles se sont promenées. So ES because of my L pluriel. D'accord? Voilà. On va continuer avec la présentation. Très bien. So you see how these work. The same thing is going to happen with negation as what happened before. I just want to look at that again too. Before we were talking about the ne pas going around the entire conjugated verb. So here I said treat this whole thing as a unit, right? And we made it negative by putting ne pas around the whole thing. N'est-ce pas? Alors ici, I'm going to pretend that this is a unit. Just the pronoun and the conjugated verb, right? Because that is how I've always done negation. So don't let this past participle throw you. It's just the rest of the sentence, okay? Alors pour le rendre négatif, alors elles ne se sont promenées. Oh pardon, voilà. For some reason today, I'm forgetting where my accents are. Alors, oh pardon, j'ai sauté le pas. That's what I started to type and then okay, voilà. I know how to do negation, okay? Ne pas. A little joke. Elles ne se sont pas promenées. D'accord? Voilà. Alors, same thing here then. They're not showing you that yet. They're worried about your agreement, but I wanted to underline that you're keeping all this together no matter what else is happening. Et j'ai pas souligné, alors je vais souligner là aussi. Voilà. D'accord? So, pronoun, conjugated verb, keep it together. Pronoun, conjugated verb, pronoun, conjugated verb, pronoun, conjugated verb. Worry about what the conjugated verb is, or the active verb, if you want to think about it that way. Sometimes that's easier. Whatever verb is changing more if you're going to change the subject, okay, the verb that's in play. D'accord? Keep your pronoun with it no matter what. We're not going to do inversion this time, but hopefully you remember how to do those. Alors, here we're going to talk more about the agreement, but I just wanted you to be sure that you're remembering to put those pronouns in front of the conjugated verb and leave them there. So the past participle doesn't agree if the subject pronoun is an indirect object. This is really, really, really grammar-y. If the non-reflexive form of the verb takes plus an indirect object, the reflexive pronoun is an indirect object. That's a really, really, really long way of looking at it. I'll tell you, most of the time these are communication verbs, okay? So anytime you have a communication verb come up, your antenna should go up as well, because you're probably not going to need to agree with it. Also, a lot of the time if you have a body part involved, you're not going to need agreement, okay? So let's look. Téléphoner à quelqu'un. You can think about the present tense, needs a, so it must be indirect. So when I do it in reflexive, I don't need agreement. D'accord? Parler à quelqu'un, I need a in present indicative, in present tense, so it's an indirect. Now I don't need agreement. But notice also that these are communication verbs. Most of the time when you have a communication verb, you need a. One example where you don't is texter. Je peux texter quelqu'un directement sans le a. I can say texter, je vais texter Kelly, je vais texter Pierre, je vais texter je sais pas quoi. Ou j'envoie now if you're going to change it and say s'envoyer des textes, envoyer un texte à quelqu'un, then I would need to drop the pronoun, or drop the agreement, okay? But most of the time, if you have a communication verb, when in doubt, don't put agreement, d'accord? Alors, se rendre compte is kind of out there on its own. You never need agreement with it. So, does everybody remember what it means? To realize something? Alors, elles se sont rendues compte de l'heure. D'accord? This one's actually not an, strictly speaking, an indirect, but when you have a pronoun, or when you have a direct object. Alors, voilà. Alors, elles se sont rendues compte de l'heure. Negatives, we talked about this a little bit before. You can think about it this way: ne before the reflexive pronoun and pas after the conjugated verb, or do what we did. I think this is simpler, but of course it's my little system, so of course I think it's better. Oh no, I started to yawn again. Voila. So think of it this way if you like. I think this was, and over the years, this has been simpler for students than some other ways of thinking about it. This is a unit. D'accord? Think of it as one piece now. Don't separate it for anything. Think about se sont being married forever. D'accord? In a good way. That sounded really, that sounded really awful. Like they're married forever. Alors, to form negative statements, as we said, we're putting ne pas around both parts. So ne in front of the reflexive pronoun and pas after the conjugated verb. And here we have an ils ne se sont pas disputés. And you see, where did my arrow go? There it is. Ce sont. If I could, I would underline this for you, but I can't. This is my unit that I was talking about before. And it really doesn't want me to use the arrow. It keeps disappearing, my arrow. Ils ne se sont pas disputés hier soir. D'accord? Ils ne se sont pas. And ne pas is going around my key unit of pronoun and conjugated verb. D'accord? And remember, if we had this in present tense, disputer would be over there, and it would be se dispute. and I would keep that together forever and ever and ever. Down here, c'est is my unit. This one's easier to remember. I think the apostrophe ones are easier to remember because there's no reason to split that up. Ne pas around my unit. The conjugated verb now is, my arrow went away again. It makes me mad they're not letting me use the arrow all the time. That's all. There it is. Okay. Elle ne s'est pas installée. Alors, c'est is my crucial unit. Ne pas around it. D'accord? To ask a question using inversion, same thing. Keep your pronoun and conjugated verb together and remember that they're a unit, just like when we did the present. So in a day or so when I get that replacement presentation up, you can go review that. So to ask a question, again, keep that unit together, just like you did with negation. Alors, s'est-il perdu à Montréal? Did Luc get lost in Montréal? Oh, pardon, I thought they would have another example for us. I want to show you another example. So here, we didn't do any inversions, but let's do an inversion. D'accord? We'll do inversions for both of them. So, elle se promène. Remember, we're keeping this together as a unit. So, when I do inversion, I'm going to keep it all together. Se promène. Tel. D'accord? I didn't mean to keep the underlining going. Voilà. Right? So keeping that unit together, just as if it was some simple verb like mange, elle mange, mange-t-elle, elles vont-elles, etc. Même chose alors ici avec le passé composé. Same thing. I'm going to keep ce sont together as a unit. So when I do my inversion, I'm not going to worry about the rest of the sentence. The rest of the sentence is just coming later the same way. So if I did one here, oops, attends, on n'a pas, elle se promène dans le vieux tour, au vieux tour. This is an area of a town that I've lived in France many times, or several times, and kind of is my home away from home in France. You'll hear me refer to Tours a lot. Well, if you've watched the cycling video, then you heard a lot about Tours. Elle se promène au vieux tour. Alors, promène-t-elle au vieux tour? D'accord? Everything else stays there. The same thing here. Just think of promener as the rest of my sentence. That's faster to read. Au parc. Voilà. So my inversion. Se sont-elles. Oh, pardon. I just really wanted to type a hyphen there. D'accord? And my ce sont is my key part, right? So I'm keeping it all together, making my inversion. Doop. Inversion. Doop. With that part and not the rest. The rest of the sentence just stays there. D'accord? Voilà. Alors, encore. In spoken French, intonation and esca are more frequently used to ask questions or reflexive verbs than inversion. This is just something that you will get used to doing and hearing, and it's not something you should have to think about. If you're asking a question with reflexives, ask it however comes to you first. So if you think about it with inversion first, then cool. If you think about it with intonation esca first, then that's absolutely fine too. But you will find, those of you who continue on in French, that yes, you will be using them more with intonation and esca. When you hear somebody ask an inverted question with reflexives, it sounds a little snooty. It's very literary. It can be very literary. You know, I immediately get this view of like a school teacher asking you a question very sternly and you know, specifically. So, yeah, it's a little stilted, but you can do it. So, and you definitely need to know how to do it. So, just bear that in mind and keep practicing those, even though, yes, you won't need the inversion quite as often as you'll need everything else. So, intonation, est-ce que tu t'es fâché avec lui? So, nothing is more, il n'y a rien de plus simple. I started to say it in English instead of in French. There's nothing more simple. Il n'y a rien de plus facile. Nothing is easier. You just put est-ce que in front of your entire sentence, right? Tu t'es fâché avec lui? Alors, est-ce que tu t'es fâché avec lui? Just like you've always done with est-ce que, put it in front of the entire sentence. And everything stays the same. Yay, est-ce que? Even easier, intonation. Vous vous êtes mis à travailler à 20 heures? I don't know why I made that sound incredulous, but whatever. All you're doing is changing your voice. Just the entire sentence is staying the same. Vous vous êtes mis à travailler à 20 heures? D'accord? Voilà. Imperative. Oh, pardon. Imperative reflexive verbs is formed as it is for non-reflexive verbs. Affirmative commands, reflexive pronoun follows the verb with a hyphen, and toi is used instead of te. So this is the same thing as you had before with moi, for example. So if I'm telling somebody to give me something, I say donne-moi. Donne-moi le zapper. Donne-moi la bouteille, ou je sais pas quoi. Here, you're very often going to have toi following because of your pronoun. So, on va voir. Amuse-toi bien. Dépêchez-vous. My pronoun goes after with a hyphen. Téléphone-nous ce soir. Téléphonons-nous ce soir. We're calling each other tonight. Let's call each other tonight. Ne t'inquiète pas. In the negative, it stays in front of the conjugated verb. D'accord? So affirmative, invert it with a hyphen, and te changes to toi. Negative, keep it in the same order, no pas around it, drop your subject pronoun like you always have with imperatives. If imperative in general seems a little weird, go back and review imperative. D'accord? Before you jump in on this. Especially before you jump in on it on iLearn. And we're grabbing the negative again, reprenons le négatif. Ne t'inquiète pas, ne vous sentez pas mal, nous nous téléphonons pas. Let's not phone each other. We always phone each other. On se téléphone tout le temps. On va se téléphoner ce soir aussi. Oh là là là. Voilà. So we're done with grammar. We're done with that grammar for now. I did want to practice reflexives a little bit more, but I couldn't find anything else to practice them with passé composé. Let's just see if we luck out. No, however, we could do these in passé composé. Let's do that. Okay. This is another site that is linked on my grammar page. The grammar page is called the ratatouille. If nobody has eaten, if you haven't had ratatouille, you should eat some ratatouille or make some. It's really easy to make and it is so yummy. So you meat eaters, you'll probably want it as a side dish. Any vegans out there, it's great as its own meal on some quinoa or some rice or whatever. So make some ratatouille. And the reason that page that we just saw actually is my ratatouille page. So this is the page that I'm in the process of updating for you. Okay, I'm gonna grab some more activities to add for you, and you can see it's pretty interminable, and it's just hopefully a place where you can go and quickly find activities to practice any particular grammar point that we might do. Now this is also already on Blazeview. You've got a lot of activities there, I know, in your modules. And you've got a lot of study guides and all that stuff. But if you just want to quickly go somewhere and practice something, you can find pretty much everything here. And I think it's a little bit easier than finding it on Blazeview. Those of you who are just really, really adapted to Blazeview, I'm not yet. You probably can tell. Please take advantage of all the stuff on Blazeview, but this gives you another avenue. So I'll have this posted as soon as I can. There are a few more links I found that were dead that I want to fix. So you'll see this a lot because we'll be using it. I'll be using it at least during presentations, as I already have. Alors là, on est sur Allons-y. Allons-y is a pretty good site. Once in a while, their stuff is a little funky, so I won't sometimes their stuff isn't posted on the Ratatouille. Here we're going to do some of them we can't do in passé composé. And we can't do any of these in passé composé. Oh, we can do number 4 in passé composé. Voilà. I can't find any with passé composé. Well, let's just go to the book then. Alors, voilà. On va regarder un exercice. Très bien. Oh, right. I have to do it this way. Okay. This is not letting me drag it down today very well. Okay. Voilà. Activité 2 is pretty cool because it reminds you where you're going to put the past participle. Remember, as you go through these, really stop and underline to yourself, where is everything sitting? So I have ce sont together, that's my unit, like we were just talking about. I have ne pas around that, and then I'm putting in my past participle, right? So, ils ne se sont pas. Je prends mon... on va le rendre un tout petit peu plus petit. Et puis, on va s'en servir. Attends. 2 secondes. Oh, il ne veut pas m'écouter. Voilà, on va le faire comme ça. Et on va faire un peu moins grand. Comme... Voilà. Bon. Alors, ils ne se sont pas excusés. Vous avez excusé. Oh, I forgot. It's just a choice between A or B. So, ils ne se sont pas excusés. Do I need agreement or not? D'accord. Elles ne se sont pas excusées. Même chose. Oh, pardon. Oh, I didn't get the right book out. I'm on the wrong page. Sorry. I should have had this ready too. Hold on. Très bien. Alors, ils ne se sont pas excusés. You need be. Excusés. Elles ne se sont pas excusées. Vous avez aussi B. Réconcilier. With agreement. Numéro 3. Nous ne nous sommes pas intéressés. Which one do you need? B. Aux études. Elles se sont mises à causer des problèmes au prof. Mises avec S. They're just going almost all the way through with B's, aren't they? Nous nous sommes disputés pendant le cours. C'est pas disputés avec S. Alors B pour l'instant. Ils se sont parlé pendant que le prof parlait. Alors ici, you can think about it the way that they told you. When you use parler in present tense, I need a. You can also think about it as communication verb. Your antenna should go up immediately. Elles se sont parlé, ils se sont parlé. Ah, no agreement. D'accord? Alors, attendez. Ah, it really doesn't want to let me drag things down. I'm having... Can you hear that? There's a little cat race course going on through the house. Ici, vous allez dire si c'est Jérôme ou Cindy qui dit chacun, n'est-ce pas? Alors, les cousins d'Abia parlent de leurs activités, indiquez qui a dit chaque phrase, Jérôme ou Cindy. Alors, bien sûr, vous allez vous concentrer sur l'accord. So, masculine versus feminine, n'est-ce pas? Numéro 1, je me suis détendue chez moi. Jérôme ou Cindy? Jérôme, n'est-ce pas? Numéro 2, je me suis détendue chez Stéphanie. Alors détendue avec eux, bien sûr. Numéro 3. Je ne me suis pas occupée de mon chien. Jérôme ou Cindy? Jérôme, bien sûr. Numéro 4. Je me suis promenée dans le parc. Alors, Cindy, bien sûr. Vous avez le E pour le féminin. Numéro 5. Je me suis amusée avec mes amis. Alors, Cindy, you have the feminine ending again. Le E pour le féminin. Numéro 6. Je ne me suis pas occupée de Fifi. Oh, c'est grave, quand même. Ils ont manqué un point aussi, là. I'm editing as we go. There's no period on the sentence. Je ne me suis pas occupée de Fifi. Alors, c'est Cindy, bien sûr. Oh, Cindy. Je me suis disputée avec Nadia. Alors, Cindy, I don't know. Cindy's kind of... Alors, Cindy, n'est-ce pas? Je me suis amusée avec Patrick. Alors, Jérôme, d'accord? C'est très bien. Remember, reminds me of Highlights for Children. That probably predates most of you. That was a magazine when I was little, where there were these two kids, and one of them was really bad, and one of them was really good, and it was supposed to make you want to emulate the really good one. So here we would want to emulate Jérôme for the most part. There are a couple things that are kind of neutral, but a lot of them are kind of like, Cindy, come on, you need to behave. Elle est maline, cette Cindy. Alors voilà. This is really boring, but I thought that other activity on text would be more interesting and help us more, but it didn't. Voilà. Alors, ici, voilà, it's almost time anyway. Les impératifs. Let's look at these actually, and I'll bring up the post-it again so that we can look at these. So, essayez, remember what we said. If it's the affirmative, you're going to invert. I don't know why this won't let me drag, but it won't hardly let me drag. There we go. You're going to invert, and you're going to replace it with toi if it's te, if it's te. And vous and nous stay the same. Don't forget, these are the only three forms you ever need in imperative. Alors, amuse-toi bien, dépêchez-vous, téléphonons-nous, d'accord? Tandis qu'avec le négatif, vous allez le laisser tout ça, le laisser en avant, n'est-ce pas? Leave it in front of the verb for the negatives. So, te, vous, nous, n'est-ce pas? Alors, je vais reprendre mon petit post-it et puis regardez le modèle. Que diriez-vous aux personnes suivantes? So you have somebody with an issue of some sort, and you're going to respond with an imperative. Ah. Alors, vous avez le modèle. Un ami a perdu son emploi. Ne t'inquiète pas. D'accord? So decide whether it needs to be negative or affirmative according to the situation. D'accord? Numéro 1. Votre ami est très fatigué aujourd'hui. Alors, qu'est-ce que vous lui dites? Vous lui dites, pardon. So, negative or affirmative? We're going to do affirmative. We're talking to a friend. So, is it going to be vous, nous ou tu? Tu, d'accord? Alors, repose, toi. With ER verbs, you hopefully remember this from way back whenever you did imperatives the first time. ER verbs, I'm dropping my S anytime it's the to form. D'accord? It's kind of weird. It's very weird actually, but you just have to memorize it and practice it that way, and pretty soon it'll be automatic. Numéro 2, se dépêcher. Votre ami est en retard pour son cours de français. So, negative or affirmative? Somebody's late for something. You remember what se dépêcher means? To hurry. Alors, affirmatif, n'est-ce pas? And, oh, pardon. Oh, pardon. Voilà. Hey, I didn't want it in italics. Voilà. What form are you going to use with them? Tu. Encore. Alors dépêche. Toi. Numéro 3. Votre ami doit aller à une ville qu'il ne connaît pas bien. Alors se perdre. To get lost. To lose oneself, if you want to think about it that way. Qu'est-ce que vous lui dites? De ne pas se perdre, n'est-ce pas? So I'm going to use the negative this time. Don't get lost. Ne. What do I use? Te, vous, nous. I'm pretty familiar with this person. Alors, ne te. How do I do RE for tu? Ne te perds pas. D'accord? Numéro 4. Vos amis vont aller à une fête ce soir. S'amuser. Affirmative or negative? Affirmatif, bien sûr. Et là, vous parlez à un groupe. This time you're talking to a group. Alors, no change with vous. So that's easy peasy. Amusez-vous. 5. Vos amis ont un examen, ils sont nerveux. Alors, s'inquiéter. This is kind of like the model. Hint, 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 hint. Voilà. Vous allez faire au négatif? No. I'm talking to a group again. Vous. N'est-ce pas? Pas. Très bien. Et numéro 6. Se disputer. Vous devez étudier, mais vos colocataires se disputent. So, this one I could see going either way, nous or vous. You could tell them not to fight, or you could say, let's not fight, even though you weren't really fighting in the first place. Sometimes that nous is used a little passive-aggressively. So let's do it that way. Let's say, oh, let's not fight, you guys, come on. Alors, qu'est-ce que vous me dites? Non. Nous disputons pas. Aïe, 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 les chats. Oh là là, c'est le bagarre. Alors, voilà, c'est très bien. Ça vous donne une petite idée, alors, des réfléchis. Again, 200 should be more or less a review. So that's why we go relatively quickly with each of these. If you need to, go back and review whatever materials you have left over from 1000 level, or go and practice online or practice with the materials in the module. I will get that grammar page posted as soon as I can, although as we saw, there weren't any for passé composé, although there were some for present tense. So if you need to practice those, then give me another day or so and I'll try to get that posted. I could go ahead and post it and just keep fixing it. Maybe I'll do that. I'll go ahead and post it. I'll put a link on BlazeView and let you know where it is. So you can use that as well. The ratatouille de grammaire. Voilà. Alors, amusez-vous bien. I'll get that other stuff posted as soon as I can. I'm almost done with the tests. So those will be this evening. And c'est bon. Alors, bonne journée. Salut.